Hello, everybody, and welcome to NBA TV's Basketballography. I'm Andre Aldridge. Today, we take a look back at one of pro basketball's early superstars. Dolph Schayes spent 16 illustrious seasons in the NBA, from the league's inaugural year to its emergence as a major sporting attraction. At 6'8", he was among the taller players in the league, but he had an outside shot as accurate as most guards. Schayes played nearly his entire career with the Syracuse Nationals, leading them to an NBA championship in 1955. He followed the Nationals to Philadelphia in his final season, and he remains the Sixers' all-time leading rebounder. A 12-time All-Star, Hall of Famer, and one of the league's 50 greatest players, Dolph Schayes helped build the foundation for the growth of the NBA.
Dolph Schayes of Syracuse, this former NYU star, has truly become one of the greatest all-around players in the league. He's led the Nationals in scoring ever since joining them 6 years before. The familiar 4 on his jersey has become the number to watch whenever Syracuse is playing. There goes Dolph, and he's terrific.
I was one of the first power forwards, which meant that I was able to take bigger men outside, and with my movement, you know, basketball is a game of movement. So I moved, and I moved continuously.
Now George King moves it down court. Over to Schayes, whose one-hand marksmanship is terrific.
My bread and butter was a great outside shot.
Dolph is an extraordinary all-around player. At team play, rebounding, and shooting, he's always terrific.
And a drive to the basket.
And Dolph used those tools to become an explosive offensive force for the Syracuse Nationals.
Very simple, very effective, and that's all you need in basketball. A couple of simple things to make you a great player.
Here's Syracuse, and note the sharp ball handling. Schayes passing behind his back to Seymour, who puts it away.
If I set my outside shot, the player would come up on me, and that's what I wanted him to do. Try to stop me from shooting from outside. Then when it came up on me, I'd go by him. I'd drive by him. And I kept working on an outside shot in order to become a more aggressive and a more complete player.
Schayes arrived in the spotlight at a young age when he took the court for NYU at New York's fabled arena.
Madison Square Garden was the capital of the basketball world. Every great team, every great player played at Madison Square Garden in the 40s. Every game was a sellout. It was one of the great thrills of my life to be in Madison Square Garden before 18,000 people at the age of 16. But I was tall, and I was a pretty good basketball player, and I needed a center, and I was just at the right place at the right time. At that time, NYU was like North Carolina, was like Syracuse, had great teams, and we played basketball the way it was supposed to be played, New York style.
A native of New York City, Dolph had developed his game on the local playgrounds, and he was a perfect fit at NYU.
All of our players came from the boroughs of New York. It was Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens and Long Island, and we played in the schoolyard. And when you play in the schoolyard, you know, to use basketball terms, you'd set picks, you'd give and go, you kept moving, you kept the floor open, so on and so forth. And we all played the same style, so when the coach threw out the ball, we knew instinctively what to do. And that carried on into my professional career.
The two rival pro leagues were about to merge, but both were trying to sign Schayes.
The New York Knickerbockers drafted me #1, and a team in Syracuse drafted me #1. But the New York Knickerbockers offered me $5,000, which, you know, today for #1 draft choice, that's not very much. But the Syracuse Nationals offered me $7,500, and the difference made me play in Syracuse because professional basketball wasn't considered a strong professional league, and I only figured to play for perhaps a year or two. But that year, then the league became very strong with a lot of great college ball players, and so that 1 or 2 years became forever. When we played in the early 50s, the game was a shambles because there was indiscriminate fouling. When a team got ahead, 10 points ahead, they would hold the ball, then you have to foul them, and then yet they wouldn't turn foul you. So the game became a foul shooting contest and would have never survived.
The slow pace of play was leading to low scores and increasingly low interest among fans of pro basketball. Eventually, NBA offense hit rock bottom, and that's when the owner of Schayes Syracuse Nationals, Danny Biasone, decided it was time for a new innovation.
What Biasone did, this owner who was a sportsman, he said we need a time clock in the game. And he developed what is today the 24-second clock. And with that, basketball prospered.
The advent of the shot clock led to a wide-open style of play. Scoring shot up, and the league took off.
Pro basketball is gaining rapid strides, and we expect soon to see it on the same level as pro football and pro baseball.
And one place where the game was making fans was Syracuse. Dolph Schayes had turned the Nationals into one of the NBA's top teams, and his small city in upstate New York became one of the toughest stops for opponents.
By many players who don't know geographically where it is considered just below the Arctic Circle. Very cold place with a lot of snow. A lot of teams didn't like to play in Syracuse because not only did we have a great team, but whenever they came up there was like a blizzard. And we also had incredible fans. We had fans who almost physically attacked the players at times.
And the fiery fans of Syracuse had the ideal team to root for in the rugged Nationals.
We had a very rough, tough team of guys who had played in the league, who were very aggressive, very strong players who were like cops on the beat, who were fellas who used their strength to push you around. So you just had to learn to roll with the punches.
While Dolph was the top scorer, he had support from a tough and talented co-star, guard Paul Seymour.
Paul was a very loyal and strong person who was the captain of our team, and we played against the Boston Celtics, for instance, many times, and Red Auerbach would always put a very strong player on me, was very aggressive, and they pulled tricks like elbowing me and punch me in the stomach, and a couple of times I'd go up for shots and I'd be undercut. And in other words, the Celtics might say took advantage of me, and Paul Seymour was my protector, you might say. And I remember one time he went to Red Auerbach and he says, "Now look, if you keep picking on Dolph Schayes, I'm going to pick on your star player," who happened to be a guy named Bob Cousy. So Red Auerbach listened and didn't pick on me anymore. And that aggressiveness rubbed off on me. And I became a much more tough player in that I just didn't take it, but I gave it out also.
The Nationals were determined to join the ranks of NBA powerhouses like Cousy and the Celtics, and Schayes was letting nothing stand in his way.
One year I broke my right wrist, which was my shooting hand.
Despite a broken wrist in midseason that forced him to play with a cumbersome cast, Schayes remained a menace. Watch him there, a tremendous player, Dolph Schayes of Syracuse.
Rather than just take a couple of months off, as a lot of players will these days, I decided to get a cast on my arm and play with it. And in doing that, I developed a great left hand. That break of my right wrist made me a complete player.
After losing to the Lakers in the 1954 finals, Schayes led Syracuse to the championship round once again the following year.
World Championship Basketball, the Syracuse Nationals versus the Fort Wayne Pistons in the NBA's final playoff at Syracuse. Now the opening tap-off, Fort Wayne wearing the dark uniforms, and they get the ball. Mel Hutchins driving. Pretty play. Here's Syracuse, and note the sharp ball handling. Schayes passing behind his back to Seymour, who puts it away.
After 6 games, Fort Wayne and Syracuse had battled to a standstill, but the Pistons took control of Game 7.
No good, but the Pistons have another chance. And Meineke makes it count.
On the 7th game of the finals, we were 16 points behind at half.
No good. And do the Nats have the jump on this one?
The Nationals stormed back with the help of the new rule instituted that very season.
And it hadn't been for the 24-second clock, the time in basketball, we never would have won the championship because obviously the other team would have held the ball for the entire second half and we would have lost the game.
Instead, they pulled out a dramatic victory, bringing an NBA championship to Syracuse.
And it was just a euphoric time for Syracuse and really meant a lot to the city and meant a lot to us players because to be on a World Championship team was one of the greatest thrills of my life.
When the Nationals won the 1955 title, it was a landmark event for their city.
It kind of put Syracuse on the basketball map or on the world map, you might say.
And the fame of Schayes and the Nationals would soon spread beyond America's borders. They departed on a journey that placed them in the role of basketball ambassadors and also made them pioneers for their sport.
In 1956, the Syracuse Nationals, as world champions, was the very first team to teach basketball in Europe.
The team brought their knowledge of the game to several European cities. And during the trip, they learned a few things themselves about one of Spain's most popular sports.
We did have a lot of fun because I think 2 days before we had seen a bullfight, and we were just horsing around on a beach in Barcelona. I'm the bull, obviously.
Dolph and his teammates also made time for plenty of sightseeing. Along the way, they reached new horizons for themselves and the game of basketball.
We went and taught basketball not over in Europe, but also in the Middle East.
Long before NBA teams began making regular overseas visits, Dolph Schayes and the Nationals were going global. They introduced the game to multitudes of new fans in countries halfway around the world and left a lasting impact behind. One year after Syracuse won the title, the NBA landscape was transformed. Bill Russell arrived with the Boston Celtics, teaming up with Bob Cousy, and the foundation was in place for basketball's greatest dynasty.
One thing that we've always had in the Celtics is mutual respect. And we think that's the most necessary ingredient for a winning combination.
The Celtics defeated the Nationals 3 times in the Eastern Division Finals, and Boston won 7 championships in Dolph Schayes' last 8 seasons. But while Dolph couldn't beat the Celtics, he did join them every year at the All-Star Game, making 12 appearances.
Dolph Schayes, Syracuse ace, formerly of NYU. And they go to work, but fast. In the corner, Dolph Schayes shooting, and the Easterners lead 2-0. Davies has it. Driving in, but a shot is beautifully blocked by Schayes. More ball hawking by the East, and they've got the apple. Bob Cousy with a wonderful brand of dribbling. On to Schayes, and 2 more for the... And the East squad is pushed out in front in the second half. Dolph Schayes shooting. Good.
Over a 6-year stretch, Schayes averaged at least 20 points and 12 rebounds per game and was a 6-time member of the All-NBA first team.
Back to Guerin. Over to Schayes, and Dolph comes across for the basket.
In the early 60s, the Lakers and Warriors headed west, and that spelled trouble for Dolph's Syracuse franchise.
The West Coast was just opened up in 1962 and 63. San Francisco and Los Angeles were given franchises in the NBA. And the cost of flying out there was enormous for a very small market team. Remember, Syracuse is about half the size of Brooklyn or half the size of the Bronx, and there aren't enough fans up there to support professional basketball. In those years, we were making an average of $15,000 or $16,000 per player, and now the expenses were going way up. So Syracuse, frankly, just couldn't make it, and the Philadelphia area wanted a team desperately, and they offered $500,000, which at that time was a king's ransom. And the owner of Syracuse, because of what looked like impending doom for the team financially, decided to sell the team, and they became the Philadelphia 76ers.
Schayes was named the 76ers player coach, and his roster was about to get a huge addition.
The 64-65 season, I got a call in the middle of the night, and a guy in a sports reporter said, "Guess what? You just got Wilt Chamberlain on your team." So I became from a rotten coach into a genius, because I got one of the greatest, if not the greatest player of all time, to play for the Philadelphia 76ers, and that turned the whole franchise around.
Led by Wilt, the Sixers reached the Eastern Division Finals against Boston, and Game 7 went down to the wire.
The Celtics are leading 110 to 109. There are 5 seconds left.
And we got a 1-point lead, and we eyeball out of bounds. I did not trust anybody else to take it out but me. I wanted to take it out because I'd make sure that I could make a good pass.
Bill Russell is taking the ball out of bounds, and Wilt Chamberlain is guarding him, and Sam Jones, one of the great players of Boston, is running down the floor, and Russell, with his left arm, throws a high pass to get over Wilt Chamberlain's arms.
Now Russell he loses the ball off the support. Russell lost the ball off the support, and the ball goes to Philadelphia.
And I call a timeout to make up the play. So I had a play where I was going to pass the ball to Hal Greer, throw the ball to Chet Walker, who was a great player, to Hal Greer, who was my best jump shooter.
We go in the huddle, and all I could say was, guys, we got to do something.
Greer is putting the ball on a play. He gets it out deep, and Havlicek steals it. Over the middle. Havlicek stole the ball. It's all over. It's all over.
Havlicek steals the ball. I said, Havlicek, how lucky can you be?
Bill Russell wants to grab Havlicek. He hugs him. He squeezes John Havlicek.
Havlicek became a star, and I became a bum.
But a year after Dolph departed as coach, Philadelphia won the championship under new coach Alex Hannum. After a brief coaching stint with Buffalo in 1971, Dolph Schayes became the supervisor of NBA officials. But he will always be remembered for his illustrious playing career that made him one of the NBA's icons of the 1950s.
In the 50s, there's a lot of forgotten heroes in the NBA. There's a player named Bob Pettit, who played for the St. Louis Hawks, one of the great power forwards of all time. And the reason he was so good is because he just kept coming at you. He hit the offensive boards hard. He hit a jump shot hard. He just played for 48 minutes at the same level. Hard. And George Mikan was also a forgotten hero. He was a fellow 6'10" tall. And I remember I had to play against him one night when my center was out, and I studied how he played. And Mikan was a player who would always go to one spot, so I decided I'll get to the spot ahead of him. And he always went to his right side, so I'd overplay him on his right side, and I would box him off the boards because he was a great rebounder. And that night, when I played against him, I overplayed him on the right side. I got to the spot ahead of him, and I boxed him out, and I held him to 48 points.
The Schayes legacy would be carried on by Dolph's son, Danny, who entered the league in 1981 and went on to a long career as an NBA center.
Danny was a good player because fundamentally he was very sound. He played the game of basketball the way it was meant to be played.
Dolph instilled his basketball knowledge and his work habits in his son.
Danny and myself always took care of ourselves physically. You know, basketball is a very physical game, especially in the NBA, where you've got to play with the playoffs and exhibition games about 100 games a year. It takes a tremendous toll on your body. And you can't shortchange your body. You've got to take care of it. You've got to get sleep. You've got to eat correctly. You've got to keep good hours. You've got to take care of yourself, and I think that was very important in the longevity of myself and my son Dan.
In 1972, Dolph Schayes was elected to the Hall of Fame, and in 1996, he was named one of the NBA's 50 greatest players. Dolph joined his fellow greats at the ceremony.
To put it tritely, I feel like a kid, in a candy store. I just feel so honored to be part of this 50. Looking at the guys, talking to them, seeing some old friends, and Cousy and Pettit and Paul Arizin and Bill Sharman and George Mikan. And then just rubbing elbows with guys I never knew but admired from afar because of their skills. And it's great, and I love it every minute. To be in a room with great, incredible play, with my hero Larry Bird, with Michael Jordan, with Magic. This was heaven, believe me. And just to be part of that is something, of course, I'll never, ever forget.
Joining the NBA's 50 greatest wasn't the only special honor for Dolph Schayes in 1997. He gathered with his former teammates from the old Syracuse Nationals to watch as the championship banner was raised from their 1955 season. The team had never received the banner when they first won the crown, and as Schayes put it, better late than never. That championship is just part of Dolph's lasting legacy as a player who put Syracuse on the basketball map and helped make the NBA a fixture on America's sports landscape. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on NBA TV's Basketballography.